The dust of the main street clung to Lena's simple dress, a faded calico that spoke of mending and quiet hours, not the chaos that was about to erupt. 8 years she'd been Lena, the sempstress, her hand deft with needle and thread, her voice soft, her eyes downcast. 8 years burying Ilara, the shadow cat, a name whispered in shadowed alleys and opulent, corrupt halls, a name synonymous with lethal grace and unbreakable will. But the past, like a persistent hound, had a way of sniffing out even the most cleverly concealed trails. Today, it wore the leering faces of 3 brutish men, reeking of cheap whiskey and malice, their intentions as ugly as the grime beneath their fingernails. Their leader, a scarred hulk named Drago, grabbed her arm, his fingers biting into her flesh like iron bands. "Parties at the saloon, sweetheart. And you're the guest of honor." Her polite refusal, her attempt to sidestep, was met with a harsh laugh. "Ain't asking." They dragged her, stumbling, towards the swinging doors of the rusty spur, the sounds of raucous laughter and tinny piano music spilling out like a promise of degradation. Lena's heart hammered, not with fear but with a cold, rising fury she thought she'd buried alongside Ilara. They shoved her inside. The noise died instantly. All eyes turned. Drago spun her into the center of the room. "Look what we found, boys. Little Lena, come to dance for us." A knife appeared in his hand, its edge glinting. "Let's see if she's as nimble with her feet as she is with that needle." He lunged, not to cut, but to terrify, to humiliate. It was the flicker of steel, the predatory gleam in his eyes, that did it. 8 years of placidity shattered like brittle glass. The reflexes, honed in countless life-or-death struggles, surged through her. Lena vanished. Ilara moved. Her hand, a blur, deflected Drago's wrist. A sickening crack echoed as his arm bent at an unnatural angle. The knife clattered to the floor. Before the second man could react, her foot snaked out, catching his knee. He went down, howling. The third, frozen mid-draw, found his gun hand caught in a vice-like grip, his face meeting the rough-hewn bar with a teeth-rattling thud. Silence. Absolute, stunned silence. Tables were overturned, chairs splintered. Ilara stood amidst the wreckage, breathing heavily, her calico dress no longer a disguise but a stark contrast to the violence she'd unleashed. The townsfolk of Redemption stared, mouths agape. Sheriff Brody, a decent man more accustomed to stray cattle than broken men, had his hand hovering near his Colt, his expression a mixture of shock and dawning comprehension. The air crackled with her unspoken truth. 8 years. 8 years she'd sewn dresses and mended fences, burying the woman she once was. But some ghosts, dear viewer, refuse to stay buried. What would you do if your deepest secret was dragged into the light, shattering the peace you'd fought so hard to build? Would you run again, or would you finally stand and fight the shadows of your past? The silence stretched, taut and fragile. Drago and his cronies groaned on the floor, their bravado replaced by whimpers of pain. Ilara's gaze swept the room, meeting the wide, fearful eyes of people who had known her only as the quiet sempstress. She saw not just fear but a dawning, unwelcome awe. Sheriff Brody finally found his voice, stepping forward cautiously, his hand still near his weapon. "Lena, or whoever you are. What in the blazes was that?" Ilara didn't answer immediately. Her fight-honed senses were still screaming, cataloguing exits, threats, the subtle shifts in weight and expression of every person in that saloon. Young Timmy, the storekeeper's son, peeked from behind his mother, Martha, his eyes not filled with terror, but with a shining, almost heroic, admiration. He'd seen bullies put in their place. Drago, clutching his broken arm, was helped up by one of his less injured companions. His face, contorted with pain and fury, spat venom. "You'll pay for this, witch. He'll hear about this. Thorn will know." The name. Marcus Thorn. It hit Ilara like a physical blow. Her carefully constructed composure cracked. Her face, already pale, went ashen. This wasn't just some local toughs getting their comeuppance. This was the long arm of her past, reaching out, dragging her back into the abyss. "Thorn," she whispered, the name a poisoned syllable on her tongue. Marcus Thorne, the patrons murmured, a ripple of unease spreading. Sheriff Brody's brow furrowed. You know him? This Thorne? Ilara's eyes were distant, seeing not the saloon, but a darker, more dangerous world. Knew of him, she corrected, her voice raspy, tight. He collects things. People. He doesn't like to lose his possessions. The implication hung heavy in the air. She hadn't just been a bounty hunter, she had been entangled with something far more sinister, something that didn't forgive or forget. The townsfolk, who moments ago were mere spectators, now felt a chill that had nothing to do with the draft from the broken window. They were linked to her now, by what they had witnessed, by the name that had been spoken. Redemption was no longer just a sleepy hollow, it was a place where Marcus Thorne's attention might turn. The cat was out of the bag. Or rather, the shadow cat was. But revealing her skill was one thing, revealing why she ran from a man like Marcus Thorne, that was a secret that could burn Redemption to the ground. Should she confide in these stunned townsfolk, or was her only option to flee once more, leaving them to face the consequences of her unveiled past? Click that subscribe button if you think she should trust them, or hit like if you believe flight is her only path to survival. Sheriff Brody's office was small, cluttered, smelling of old paper and stale coffee. Ilara sat, not on the offered chair, but leaning against the wall, a coiled spring of tension. The initial shock among the townsfolk had given way to a nervous curiosity, a dawning dread. Brody, to his credit, was trying to be methodical. So, this Marcus Thorne. Is why you were hiding here? Why Lena the Sempstress? Ilara finally nodded, her gaze fixed on a faded wanted poster on the wall, some long-forgotten outlaw. Thorne isn't just a criminal, Sheriff. He's an architect of ruin. He builds empires on broken lives and shattered trusts. He sees people as assets, tools, or liabilities. Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion, which somehow made the words even more chilling. I was useful to him once. Very useful. The unspoken truth hung heavy. She had been his prized hunter, his enforcer, perhaps even something more personal, something that made her escape an unforgivable betrayal. He doesn't forgive desertion. He views it as theft. And I stole myself from him, but there was more, a deeper, more perilous secret that gnawed at her. It's not just me he'll come for, Sheriff. He believes I took something else. Something vital to him. A ledger detailing his darkest transactions, names, locations, evidence that could topple everything he's built. Her eyes met Brody's. I don't have it. I never did. But he won't believe that. He can't believe it. The unspoken horror settled upon them. Thorne would stop at nothing, destroy anything, to retrieve what he thought she possessed. As if summoned by her words, a cry came from outside. Riders! Dust cloud to the east. A lot of them. The stark reality slammed home. Thorne's outriders. The town of Redemption, small and isolated, lay directly in their path. Sheriff Brody paled but firmed his jaw. This town might not look like much, he said, that Lena or Delara lost in the gravity of the moment, but we don't back down when trouble comes calling, especially when it threatens one of our own. A few brave townsfolk, including Martha, Timmy's mother, clutching an old Winchester, an old man Henderson, who'd seen war in his youth, gathered outside the office, their faces a mixture of fear and grim determination. Seeing their courage, however fragile, Ilara felt a flicker of something she thought long dead, connection. And with it, a crushing weight of guilt. Her past was about to engulf them all. The vanguard of Thorne's men, a dozen grim-faced riders, fanned out at the edge of town, a clear line of menace. A lone figure detached himself, riding forward under a white flag. It was Thorne himself, impeccably dressed, an aura of cold, charismatic evil preceding him like a winter wind. Possession. That was Thorne's obsession. And Ilara was the one prize that had slipped his grasp. Now, he'd tear down a whole town to reclaim what he believed was his. What price loyalty? What price freedom when the wolves are at the door? Tell us in the comments below, should the town stand with Ilara or sacrifice her for their own safety? Marcus Thorne reigned in his magnificent black stallion, its coat gleaming like polished obsidian, a stark contrast to the dusty, weathered buildings of Redemption. His smile was a bloodless gash in a face that was handsome in a cruel, predatory way. "Sheriff," he began, his voice smooth, cultured, yet carrying an unmistakable undertone of menace that reached every corner of the silent street. "I am Marcus Thorne. I come seeking a fugitive from my justice. A woman who calls herself Lena here, I believe. She is a thief, a betrayer. Deliver her to me, and your quaint little town will remain untouched. Obstruct me." He let the threat hang, more potent for being unspoken. Elara stepped forward from beside Sheriff Brody, her simple dress now seeming like a warrior's tunic. "This is between you and me, Thorne." "Leave them out of it." Thorne's eyes, cold as glacial ice, fixed on her. A flicker of something possessive, triumphant, gleamed within them. "Ah, Elara. Always so dramatic. But you see, my dear, they involved themselves when they chose to harbor you. They have made your problem, our problem, their own." He gestured dismissively. "My offer stands. For your town's continued existence." Sheriff Brody's voice was hoarse but firm. "She's under the protection of Redemption, Thorne. We don't give up our own." A murmur of agreement, laced with fear, rippled through the small band of armed townsfolk behind him. Thorne's smile tightened. A noble sentiment. And a foolish 1 inch. He wheeled his horse. "You have 1 hour to reconsider." The siege began not with a bang, but with a tightening knot of dread. Thorne's men, skilled and ruthless, encircled Redemption, their presence a suffocating blanket. Probing attacks started, a shot from a hidden sniper kicking up dust near Martha's feet, a flaming arrow arcing towards the hayloft of the livery stable. Elara was everywhere. The Shadow Cat, unleashed. She moved with a silent, deadly grace, directing the desperate defense. Her terse commands to Brody and the others were precise, her knowledge of tactics uncanny. She anticipated Thorne's moves, countered them with limited resources but boundless ingenuity. A thrown knife disarmed a scout creeping near the general store. A carefully aimed shot from her purloined rifle discouraged a group trying to breach the barricade at the end of Main Street. Young Timmy, trying to ferry water, stumbled into the path of a stray bullet. Elara, a blur of motion, tackled him, shielding him with her own body as the slug ripped through the wooden trough beside them. Martha's gasped thanks. The boy's terrified but grateful eyes forged a bond stronger than steel. But Thorne was toying with them. His forces were superior, his cruelty boundless. Supplies dwindled. Exhaustion etched itself onto every face. Hope began to fray. Elara knew this couldn't last. Thorne wanted her broken, or the towns will shattered. He wanted his ledger. She had to make him believe he could get it. The siege tightened its grip, squeezing the life from Redemption. Every gunshot, every cry in the night, a testament to Thorne's cruelty. But in the face of such darkness, sometimes, the smallest flame of defiance burns brightest. Don't forget to like this video if you're rooting for Redemption and the incredible courage of Elara. What desperate measures will she take to save these people who have embraced her? Desperation breeds bold, often reckless, courage. Elara, her face grimy, her body aching, knew the town couldn't withstand another night. Thorne was patient, a spider waiting for the fly to exhaust itself. She had to change the game, force his hand. She would offer him the one thing he craved more than her capture, the illusion of recovering his precious ledger. "Sheriff," she said, her voice low and urgent, finding Brody near the makeshift barricade by the church, "I have a plan. It's risky." She outlined it quickly. She would send word to Thorne. A trade. Herself, and the location of the ledger, for the guaranteed safety of Redemption and its people. Brody's eyes, bloodshot from lack of sleep, widened. "He'll kill you, Elara." She met his gaze, a flicker of the old, hard shadow cat glinting within. "He'll try. But it's our only chance to get him where we want him." It was a lie, of course. There was no ledger to trade, only a trap to spring. A captured scout, suitably terrified, was sent back with her message. The wait was agonizing. Then, Thorne's reply, he agreed. The meeting would be in the Rusty Spur Saloon, the very place her secret had been violently unveiled. He would come with only 2 guards. His arrogance, Ilara knew, would be his undoing. The saloon was a wreck, shadows clinging to the broken furniture, the air thick with the ghosts of yesterday's violence. Thorn entered, flanked by his 2 most formidable enforcers, his expression one of smug triumph. "I knew you'd see reason, Ilara. Such needless drama. Now, where is it?" The ledger. Ilara stood alone in the center of the room, her stance deceptively relaxed. "Your word first, Thorn. Let the town go. Order your men to pull back." Far beyond striking distance, Thorn smirked, then gave a curt nod to one of his men, who relayed the order. There was a distant sound of movement as his main force began a strategic, if perhaps temporary, withdrawal. Satisfied, he purred. "Now, the ledger. My patience is wearing thin." This was the moment. The precipice. Ilara allowed a small, cold smile to touch her lips. "There is no ledger, Thorn," she said, her voice clear and carrying in the tense silence. "There never was. There's only you, and me. And the reckoning you so richly deserve." The words hung in the air for a heartbeat, then shattered as Ilara moved. She wasn't aiming for Thorn, not yet. Her targets were his guards, the immediate threats. A shard of broken glass, palmed earlier, flew from her hand, striking one guard's exposed wrist, making him cry out and drop his pistol. Simultaneously, she launched herself low, sweeping the other guard's legs from under him. He crashed heavily, his head hitting the edge of the overturned bar. Thorn, momentarily stunned by her audacity, drew his own ornate pistol, but Ilara was already rolling, coming up with the fallen guard's weapon. Shots exploded, the confines of the saloon amplifying the roar. Wood splintered, bottles shattered. Outside, the sounds of renewed, coordinated gunfire erupted. Sheriff Brody and the townsfolk, no longer just defending, were attacking, cutting off Thorn's escape, dealing with the men he deceitfully left closer than promised. Inside, it was a brutal, personal dance of death. Thorn, for all his posturing, was a dangerous combatant, his movements fueled by rage and a desperate possessiveness. He lunged, not with a gun, but with a concealed blade, a vicious, curved dagger. It scored a burning line across Ilara's arm. She gritted her teeth, ignoring the pain, her focus absolute. She was faster, more agile, using the wreckage of the saloon to her advantage, a phantom in the dim light. She disarmed him of the dagger, the clang of steel echoing, then pressed her attack. It wasn't about killing him, not in cold blood. It was about dismantling him, breaking his power, his aura of invincibility. A final, desperate struggle, and Thorn was down, gasping, his finery torn, his face a mask of disbelief and fury. Ilara stood over him, breathing heavily, her own blood dripping onto the dusty floorboards. The fighting outside subsided. Sheriff Brody appeared in the doorway, his rifle smoking, flanked by Martha and old Henderson. They looked from the defeated Thorn to Ilara, a profound silence falling. The monster was caged. His remaining men, leaderless and demoralized, were surrendering or fleeing into the wilderness. Redemption was saved. Ilara sagged against a support beam, the adrenaline ebbing, leaving behind a wave of exhaustion and pain. The townsfolk slowly entered, not with fear this time, but with a quiet, awestruck gratitude. Young Timmy, clutching a wilting wildflower, shyly approached and pressed it into her hand. Martha gently took her injured arm, her touch surprisingly tender. Sheriff Brody just nodded, a deep, unwavering respect in his eyes. She was no longer just Lena the Sempstress, nor only the feared Shadowcat. She was Ilara, protector of redemption. In the heart of a town that bore the name of her own salvation, she had confronted her past and, in saving others, had finally saved herself. She had found her place. She had found her family. The shadow of Thorn was lifted. Ilara, the woman who hid from her past, found her future in the heart of a town named Redemption. A testament that even the deepest scars can heal, and true strength is found not in running from who you are, but in using your gifts to protect others. What did you think of Ilara's incredible journey from hunted fugitive to town savior? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and be sure to watch our next story, where we explore another tale of courage against all odds.